just want to pick up, I want to start where Susie left off. Within a few weeks after my election as chair, we sat down with the leadership of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, the chief executive officer who's based in Washington, the national field director who's based in Washington, the person who's the political director for the Western United States. And we struck an agreement. And that agreement was that, you'll have to use me because I'm going to use a highly technical term, but they wouldn't fuck around in the seats where we had endorsements. That we would work together in those seats to try to make them work. And in the seats where we didn't have endorsements, essentially they could do what they needed to do. We have a lot of potential, though it's overhyped. A lot of these seats that everybody says are in play are not Democratic seats. They're still +2, +3, +7 Republican seats. Now that doesn't mean they're not potentially in play, but that doesn't mean they're Democratic seats. Right? It's really different if a seat, if you look at David Valadio's seat, which is Bakersfield over to Fresno, that's a Democratic seat. We never should have lost it. We lost it because a schmuck Democrat who was in office gave up his seat to go to work for one of the oil companies, literally. And we lost it in a special election. And as you all know, once there's an incumbent in any seat, it's very hard to pry it free. And from David Valadio's beginning, as a member of Congress, they gave him permission not to vote the hard line on certain issues like immigration. And David Valadeo is not a Latino, he's Portuguese, but he plays it up because his name sounds Latino, he plays it up as if he's a Latino. So there's a lot of history in these seats, and some of them we have a better chance than in others. I've taken a stance on the issue of the number of candidates that we have that's a little bit contrary to where people probably expected me to. And that is, I refuse to say to anybody, you can't run. It's not your time. Now, I talked to lots of candidates. In fact, I talked to almost every candidate where we were overpopulated. And in fact, in the 39th or 49th congressional districts in Orange County, I sat down with all of the candidates. And I said to them, you have to think about these races not as a matter of your own ego, but as a matter of the greater good for America. Because if you believe that the menace that Donald Trump is presenting to America through his policies and his actions and his instability is really a problem, then at a minimum we have to create a bulwark against him, and that is taking back the House of Representatives. In the end, we got about a half a dozen candidates to drop out of races. And what I said to them in taking this approach, what I said to folks was this: look, let's sit down and let's look and see, is there an assembly seat? Is there a Senate seat? Is there a city council seat? Is there a school board seat? Is there a commission? Is there another way you can express your public service that won't jam us up? One of the problems that we have, and I'll sort of circle this all back together so it makes sense in a few minutes. One of the problems that we have is that in a number of these races, we have sort of multi-millionaires who are self-funding, whose egos match their bank accounts. And they all think they're smarter than the rest of us. And they all think they're the best thing since Wonder Bread The whole strong body is, I don't know, 12 ways, and it was originally 8 ways, and then it became 12 ways.
Which of course was wrong.
Even if he's a millionaire.
And the truth of the matter is, they're not best candidates. So, in working with the DCCC and the level of engagement that we have had with them is unheard of. My political director and my senior strategist meet with the West Coast director and their lead person in California every week. All of the congressional staff that's being hired, we hire. Clark interviews every one of them. We vet them, we make a determination. But in some places it's better than others. The 25th Congressional District was a great metaphor. It was really a great metaphor for how they had screwed us in prior years. Because, not that I think Lou Vince could have won, because I absolutely don't think Lou Vince could have won. He couldn't raise a nickel. And you're not going to beat an incumbent congressman without money. But notwithstanding that fact, that they floated in a candidate who didn't have any tie to the district, infuriated the local activists, and frankly irritated the hell out of the voters. You mean to say there wasn't one good Democrat who lived in the 25th Congressional District that you could have recruited to run? Okay, so Lou Vince wasn't your candidate? Find somebody who ties. In the 21st Congressional District last time, it's one of my favorite stories to tell. They had a local guy, he had run before and he had lost. He was kind of not a good candidate, to say the least. And found a woman who lived in Pasadena, who had grown up in Kern County. This was a lawyer or something. And they moved her from Pasadena to Bakersfield. She was the hottest thing, she was the latest hottest thing since sliced bread. She's more like a Parker rolled in white bread. And she came out there and the locals were pissed. They had their guy Hernandez, they liked him, even though he had proven not to be a good candidate previously, they liked him. Nobody talked to him. Or if they did, it was make-believe talk. So they bring this woman in, and she hits the ground, and she shows up at groups like this. People are saying, what the hell are you doing here? You lived here when you were 6 years old, and you're 40 now. You've been living in Pasadena. You're a rich woman from Pasadena. 3 weeks into the race, she basically had a nervous breakdown. This is true. She basically had a nervous breakdown. She quit and she left. So now they scurry around to find another candidate, and they settle on Emilio Huerta.
Oh, no.
Dolores Huerta's son.
Oh, God.
Oh, listen. They might have settled on Dolores Huerta. They might have had a winning candidate.
Yeah.
But Emilio didn't have any experience as a candidate. And he got in late, and the DCCC did not want their fingerprints on this. Let's be honest, because they'd just blown it with their candidate who they flew in from Pasadena. And Dolores says to me, it was like July of 2016, what can we do to help Emilio? I said, well, the problem, Dolores, is that part of what made him an attractive candidate is you. Your ability to help raise money, not that she's a big money raiser, she's a grassroots money raiser, but your ability to raise money, your ability as an organizer, the fact that everybody knows you so well. I said, if you're running all across the country trying to help elect the next president of the United States, that's surely important. But if you want your son to be victorious, you have to cut your schedule back and you have to be here. He's too green. Needless to say, he lost by 6-7 points. He got in the race again this time. The locals all lined up for him, but clearly his heart was not in it. Clearly his heart was not in it. He was not raising money well. He was not working that hard. and he was looking for a way out. And there was a candidate in an adjacent district in the 10th Congressional District named T.J. Cox, who's actually, despite the name of T.J. Cox, he's half Asian, half Latino. Not that anybody's going to recognize that from the ballot. He was in, the 10th Congressional District is the Jeff Benham district, and it's a mishmash. There's a lot of candidates. So Emilio dropped out, and TJ owned a home in this district already, and his business was based in that district. So for him to move into that district, nobody could really say he was a carpetbagger. So we have one Democrat in that district now who's actually campaigning very hard, who has run once before and ran a fairly good campaign. So we're more hopeful about that seat than we were. The 4 seats, and you'll have to forgive my voice because I already had a little bit of a cold, but my allergies went nuts with the wind yesterday. The 4 seats in Orange County, everybody thinks are like they're going to flow to us. Well, they're not going to flow to us. We have the potential to win at least 2 of them, but it's going to take hard work. The Republicans are not easily going to give this up. And the media is hurting us, not helping us in an odd way. Some of you may have by now seen the line that I used at the convention where I said, we don't have a candidate problem, we have an overpopulation problem. So, for example, at the time that I made that comment, we had 9 Democrats running in the 39th Assembly District. We had 8 Democrats running in the 49th Assembly District. We had 6 candidates running in the 48th Assembly District. Now, we got that down a little bit. But what the media is doing that I think is extraordinarily unfair is in a seat where there are 6 Republicans and 4 Democrats, they're writing stories about how the Democrats are going to split the vote up. In the 39th, let's take this as an example, 39th Congressional District is the edge of Los Angeles County into Orange County. And it was represented by Ed Royce. This was the one seat, by the way, originally that everybody was hyping that we were going to win, that I never thought we could win. Because Ed Royce, the guy who held the seat before, while very, very conservative, was an excellent congressman for his constituents. What I mean by that is he ran his office the way a congressional office should be run. It didn't matter if you were Democrat or Republican, black, white, Latino, Asian, it didn't matter. Everybody got service. When I was on Clinton's healthcare team back in 1993 and 94, he was the only Republican congressman in this state to invite me to come and speak at his town hall meeting about the Clinton health plan. And in fact, it's odd, I still have the certificate he gave me because it's the only certificate I've ever gotten from a Republican congressman. Anyway, I really thought he was going to be the one we could never beat. But he dropped out and decided not to run for re-election after 12 terms or whatever it is, 10 terms, because he actually felt the wind shifting in his district. So here's what we have. Right now we have a millionaire candidate who made most of his money in the sort of healthcare insurance
He won the lottery.
realm. No, that's a different one.
Oh, okay.
The other one.
We have a millionaire candidate who won a $256 million lottery jackpot. We have an Asian American woman who's, I don't know if she's exactly a millionaire, but she's very wealthy. I believe she's a physician. We have Sam Jamal, and I have to just I have to put this out there for honesty. Sam was my intern in 2003, worked for me in 2004, and is one of my favorite kids.
I love him.
In the political world. Went on to work for Maldef as a legal counsel, to work on Capitol Hill, became a chief of staff to a congressman, was legal
The only
counsel.
qualified candidate.
Legal counsel to a Senate committee, and President Obama appointed him as special assistant to the Secretary of Commerce.
What district is this?
39.
Sam is probably the guy by all rights we don't like to win this thing. He's genuine, he's honest, he's progressive, he's not a bullshit artist. here's the problem. You got the two millionaires that are killing each other. So I told Sam 4 months ago, I said, if you take anything from the gray hairs that I've earned in the last 25 years, take this piece of advice. The rich guys are going to pound the hell out of each other. Don't join them. Don't jump into that. Stay with your positive, progressive, forward-looking message. Talk about your connection to the district because you're from the district. Talk about your accomplishments. Talk about how you fought for Latinos. Talk about how you fought for commerce and trade working for Obama. Talk about your experience on Capitol Hill. And while these guys are beating the hell out of each other, maybe, just maybe, they'll be able to come up a little between them. But see, when they tell the story, they, the media, they talk about how we have all these Democratic candidates who are tearing each other apart and we're never going to be able to get there. What they don't tell you is that there are 6 Republicans, 3 of whom are major candidates. One is the former minority leader of the state Senate. One is a current supervisor in Orange County. And one is the mayor of one of the cities in the district, I believe it is. And so when I push back on these reporters constantly say, you keep writing this story about the Democrats tearing each other apart, is a district that's 1 point difference in registration. Here you have 3 strong Republicans. Oh, Young Kim is the other one. Young Kim, so they've got one who's got the draw on the API community in the district. They got the supervisor who's the old white-haired conservative guy. And then they've got this guy who's a younger conservative who represents that movement. I said, so just like you're saying, we're going to split the vote up, they're going to split the vote up. So fair has to be fair. In the Rohrabacher race, yes, we have 2 characters for candidates. And unfortunately, they're leveling bizarre attacks against each other. But Rohrabacher is facing Scott Baugh. Who is Scott Baugh? He was briefly the Speaker of the Assembly, Republican Speaker of the Assembly. He was the mayor of Anaheim and was the longtime chair of the Republican Party in Orange County for like 10 years, running against Rohrabacher. So what happens with all the Republicans? The old-timers and the Michiganers, they're all for Rohrabacher. Because the Michiganers were always for Rohrabacher. He smoked weed, he surfed, whatever he did. And the young conservatives are more Scott Baugh. So if our 2 candidates don't kill each other, we can potentially win. Now, and at the end of this, I'm going to talk to you about the negatives on our candidates, not the specifics, but just generally. In the race in the 50th Congressional District, which is Darrell Issa's seat.
That's the 49th.
49th. We have 2 candidates. And they're tearing each other apart. And they're planting stories about each other.
Mark Levin started it.
I don't know if it's that seat or the 50th, one or the other. We have one candidate who was a Marine for many years. Kind of stellar record, but he's got some peccadillos like everybody, like all those guys do. And then we've got a guy whose grandfather planned and executed the assassination of the Israeli athletes at Munich at the Olympics. So on the one hand, they're tagging the young Palestinian American candidate, or half Palestinian American candidate, with his grandfather's sins, which he has long since forgotten. He wasn't even alive when his grandfather was alive. And that guy's people are tagging the Marine and saying that his father was with the KKK. And I am telling you, instead of raising money for the party, I'm spending hours a day on the phone with these people saying, what is wrong with you all? You're so wrapped up, you're so invested in your own egos, you're going to cost us these races. And none of these candidates have clean backgrounds. Everybody's got something. I beat up my wife, I didn't pay my taxes, whatever it is. And none of that is hidden from view. And what happens is, when I used to teach candidates who run in what I call the red zone, the red areas of our state, I used to always say to them, when you walk into a room full of Democrats and they give you a standing ovation, they applaud you, and they call you Mr. Congressman, Madam Assembly Member, don't let it go to your head. Because the minute you do, you stop being viable. You stop being aware of what's going on around us. We have this extraordinary opportunity. There is no reason we don't pick up at least 3 seats. There's no reason that we couldn't get to 5 seats. And if the wave is really strong, even before that, if we don't destroy it ourselves. And what's interesting is this is not so much progressive versus moderate. Some people want to paint it in that frame. It's not institutionalist versus new wave. It's not that. It's about different people's egos and what people are attaching to. And when you have a candidate who actually challenges an endorsement vote, this is a true story, and I'm not going to identify which candidate, 72 votes cast in the endorsement vote, he got 12. But he challenged the process. Because 3 or 4 of them might not have been appropriate voters, because they weren't on this list. Well, of course we threw out the challenge, because if 10 of them weren't eligible, it would not have changed the outcome. So what we have to do is we have to push people forward. We have to remind people that the very reason so many people are animated about voting is because they're tired of all this negative shit. You know what? It's always important to talk about Trump. No question about it. It's always important to make sure people know what he's doing to America. And what he's doing to America standing in the world, and what he's doing to the world. But that will not make people vote for Democrats. Think about this for a minute. People want to know how we make their lives better. During the campaign in 2016, I said, how could somebody in the Rust Belt think that a guy whose ties were made in Indonesia, whose hats were made in Mexico, and whose jackets were made in China was going to bring jobs back to America? What kind of a schmuck are you? But there's this core of anger and frustration, particularly in a segment of white America and of white middle America. Are you going to Santa Monica now?
Yeah. No, I just took Gracie and then I'm going to...
Okay, I'll see you there. There's this core of people who are so frustrated, and they're so angry, and feel so helpless. But part of what makes them feel that way is that the world is changing around them. And I always use this one example because it startled me. When Obama won the presidency in 2008, about 6 weeks after he was elected president, he spoke at, I believe it was the University of Arizona. And as you know, Arizona is an open carry state. And what people don't realize is in the law in our country, the Secret Service controls the venue in which the president is in, not outside the venue. So if you're in an open carry state like Arizona, people can march around with rifles on their shoulders, and the Secret Service can't do anything about it. They can do it inside the facility, but not outside the facility. So CNN was covering this, and there was this woman who was probably 70 years old and carrying a gun and a protest sign about Obama. And the reporter said, "Why are you protesting the new president?" And she said, "Because when I look at him in the Oval Office, when I see him in the Oval Office, that's not my White House. That's not my president. And so what you realize is that this cadre of people who grew up in these places where 90% of the people were white, and 90% of the power was held by people who were white, and 90% of the political offices were held by people who were white, and every pastor and principal and police officer was white. All of a sudden, the world around them started to change very rapidly the last 10, 15 years. And there's brown people everywhere in America, and there's black people everywhere in America, and there's Asian Pacific Islander Americans everywhere in America, and there are Jews everywhere in America, and there are Muslims everywhere in America. Now, by me, I'm a kid who grew up in the Bronx and in Queens, New York. To me, that's what the world's about. Living in a place where people are from all around empowers me and gives color and creativity to my life. But to those people, all they saw was, they always figured they had a leg up. They always figured they had a chance, because the guy who was going to be the next mayor looked like them. The guy who was going to be the next congressman looked like them. And now suddenly they see a black president. Now suddenly they see, Maxine Waters on television. And those people and their frustration and their anger coalesced in 2016.
It's fear.
And notwithstanding the errors of the Clinton campaign, notwithstanding that fact, because he went and he spoke their language, both with dog whistles and without dog whistles. Because he said some very direct things.
Yeah.
They were magnetized to him. So when we go out and campaign, and especially those of us who are activists, we have to have a positive message. We have to talk about what a difference it makes when we support free, high-quality public education for every student, and that no kid should graduate college with such a crushing debt that they can never pay off their school loans. And oh, by the way, that there's no job to use their newfound education that just cost $100,000. We have to talk about the importance of health care, not as a privilege of employment, not as a privilege of wealth, but as a right of humanity. We have to talk about the environment, but when we talk about the environment, especially for those of you who live up here, it can't just be about keeping the beaches pristine, which obviously is essential to California, but it has to be to talk about what's going on in Pacoima and in East LA, where battery acid is leaching up through the earth, poisoning kids who are playing in the yards. So we have to be talking about solutions to that. I debated Jim Brulte on, I think it was Thursday. Jim Brulte is the chair of the California Republican Party. I happened to be friends with him for many years. He was the minority leader in the Senate, and he was the minority leader in the Assembly. And somebody said to me, why are you going to the Richard Nixon Library in Yorba Linda to debate the chair of the Republican Party? I said, because if I don't, they win. If I don't stand up and say to him, you know what? You had your chance. You've had your chance. And then I love to tell the tale of two Governors Brown. And I'll tell you, Jerry Brown is not my favorite governor, but he's been a damn good governor. He stood up to an awful lot. So two Governors Brown got elected in 2010. Jerry Brown and Sam Brownback. Sam Brownback was the single most conservative member of the United States Senate, and he got elected governor of Kansas on a premise that if he was elected, he would slash the size of the government, he would kill the corporate income tax, and he would grossly reduce taxes on the wealthy. Jerry Brown got elected by saying the following: I will not increase your taxes without asking your permission, but I will tell you why I'm raising those taxes and what it's for. And when I do that, and when we prove to you that we can fix our budget deficit and begin to reinvest in our state, you'll see how our economy turns around and how our state begins to turn around. Well, today we have $19 billion surplus. We have $9.5 billion sitting in our rainy day fund. The one outstanding debt we still have is obviously retiree debt. That we have to work on how we pay that down. We paid off all of Arnold's bonds that he bought at 8.5% interest to pay for operations, unheard of. We paid back all the money we stole from the schools. And we're in good shape. Should the economy take a downturn next year, and let's be honest, there's a business cycle, and the states and the economy go through the business cycle, it's gonna go down. But at least we have some cushion this time. Well, Sam Brownback kept his word. He closed 7 departments of his state's government. He killed the corporate income tax. He took the top income tax rate down by 66%. You know that last year, they had to shut the schools 11 days early because they couldn't pay the teachers and they couldn't pay the electric bill, literally. 2 years in a row. He is leaving office, and by the way, Donald Trump gave him an exit strategy, which I'll tell you about in 1 second. He is leaving office with the lowest popularity rating of any governor in America. His approval rating is 8.5%.
Oh my God.
And what did Donald Trump do? He made him our ambassador for religious values. I didn't know we had an ambassador for religious values.
We don't.
I qualify for that. Today's Shabbos. I was at shul this morning. Why didn't make me an ambassador? But here's the thing. Our programs are not perfect. And we have to try and trial. And politics is about working together with people who are across our democratic spectrum and frankly who aren't even in our spectrum. But our policies have to be about helping people. Our policies have to be about lifting people up. Our policies it's not, so I got into an argument with somebody this morning who said, what you want to do is welfareize people for life. I said no. What I want to allow people to do is not end up in the street, then get an education or training for a job so that they can have a future after they have a roof over their head, after they have food in their stomachs, after they can feed their kids. That's what I want to do. You're a statist. I said, I don't even know what a statist is. We have to go out and campaign, whether we're talking about visiting our neighbors in the 25th Congressional District, whether we're talking about campaigning for the Democrat in the 45th Assembly District, whether we're talking about governor or secretary of state or whatever it is. And we have to talk about the positive value of our party, of our platform, of our values, and of our programs. And let me tell you, our party is, our tent is so wide, sometimes it's too wide.
Yep.
We have people in our party who are anarchists. We have people in our party who are communists. We have people in our party who are socialists. We have people in our party who are liberals. We have people in our party who are moderates. And we have people in our party who are right of center, pro-life, anti-choice, anti-marriage equality.
Kick them out.
Well, that's not the answer. No, that's not the answer. The answer, by the way, is to try to bring them into a more sane perspective. But the point is, for whatever reason, they identify in our party. And as long as they're not planted there by Russia,
Or Donald Trump.
right? You know, we can work with them. But I have said over and over and over for 100 years. Seems like 100 years, I'm getting old fast. When you go out and you talk to a voter, and you speak to them from your heart, when you speak to them about what makes a difference in people's lives, in an appropriate manner to the place they are, that is the best way to win them over. Promising huge programs that are going to do all these great things, well, that's all well and good, except right now we're not in a mood in America to pass any huge programs to do anything except to fund new wars and to shut down other programs. But talking to people about what commonsensical values we have, and about how our candidates can help. Point one, and as activists, we have an obligation to do that. In whichever role we choose to take in helping campaign, whether it's going door to door, whether it's making calls, whether it's stuffing letters, whatever it is, whether it's texting and tweeting, whatever you do. And in today's world, it's all part of it. But our obligation doesn't end at 8 p.m. on Election Day. See, this is something people get mixed up about. People say, oh, well, I worked to elect, Ben Allen. And he went to Sacramento and he voted against everything I was for. I say to them, well, when did you talk to Ben Allen last? When did you say to Ben Allen, it's really important to me that you vote for this bill or that you vote against this bill? It may not change his mind, but if you don't tell him that, how's he supposed to know? I'm sorry, Ben, you're not here. I just picked your name out of the sky. But so what, as activists, we have to train ourselves is it doesn't end at 8 p.m. on Election Day. Phase 2 is asserting ourselves with those people we just helped elect. Not just asserting ourselves with them to say, hey, this is what I want, this is what we need. It's also having their back when they do something good. When a legislator or a member of Congress takes a tough vote, and frankly, sometimes they get pilloried. When they do that, you need to let them know, what, we're here, we have your back. I look at what's going on with Mike Bauman. Here's a guy, there is not a more progressive member of that city council, don't tell me Paul Koretz.
No.
Mike Bauman is far and wide the most cogent, progressive member of that city council, and the most physically engaged in his district. You know what? He supported a policy some people don't like. That happens. Tell him. That doesn't mean you turn around and try to recall him. You have to use our common sense. And then when somebody goes after somebody like a Mike Bauman, we all have to rise up and speak out and let them know. I have to tell you, the folks at the California Democratic Party on the inside staff and the officers have never seen anything like they're living with right now. They never had a chair who's in the office every day of the week. They never had a chair 3 days a week in Sacramento, 2 days a week in Los Angeles, who has staff meetings with the staff and leads the staff meeting every week. We spent 3.5 hours 2 days ago planning the next executive board meeting in a meeting that basically I led. It's different. No, I'm not John Burton with his long, illustrious career as a legislator, nor Art Torres with his long career.
You're way better.
But you know what? I will tell you this. The most money that was ever raised in sponsorships for a convention was $1.46 million. We raised $2,070,000 this year. Not a dime of oil,
Yeah.
no insurance money, no bank money, no tobacco money, no pharma money.
Woo. Yeah.
And it's not easy. And because I'm not John Burton or Art Torres, a lot of times I'm dealing with people and ask them for money who I've never dealt with before. If they're from Southern California, they know me. They've worked with me. But if they're from Northern California, oftentimes they don't. And so I've had to try to explain things. I set the structure of our party leadership differently. I set the party of our staff differently. You can ask any one of the statewide officers, and those who've been officers before will tell you, never before did they get to participate in planning and decision making. They participate in our staff meetings, either in person or by phone. They participate in our calls with the regional directors and the county chairs and the DNC members and the leaving somebody out, the 4 groups that we get on the phone with every month. They participate in all of that. They've never done that before. I call the shared governance model. I'm not sure that's truly fair because most of the ultimate decision-making I do hold back because operationally, you got to work that way. But in terms of our planning, they're partners. I don't have an executive director at the party. I have 2 senior staff at the top of the tree, and I have 4 division directors and 2 additional directors who manage the staff. And when we have our staff meeting, when we participate, everybody from the receptionist to my senior strategist all participate. Everybody gives a report on what they do. Is this the best system ever? Probably not. It drives them crazy. I think a lot of times they think, why is the chair asking these questions? I believe in management by walking around, and every week I try to talk to at least 4 or 5 of the staff members, for at least a little while one-on-one. And I try to keep them all engaged because, they work long and hard. I came in and we had a lot of vacancies we had to fill. Some we didn't even realize were vacant. We had the opportunity to hire some incredibly talented people. My communications director, my creative director, those of you who were at the convention, you saw how different the physical look of the convention was. The hours of planning that went in to try to make the programming more interactive and more fun. If we didn't have 36 statewide candidates that we had to shoehorn into that program, think about that. 36 candidates we had to give time on the stage. We had all these other plans. I was going to have Van Johnson come out and do this whole bit.
Van Jones.
Van Jones.
I'm wondering why you were bringing an actor.
I'm getting old. And we were going to have Van Jones come in and do the whole thing, and we just couldn't we needed at least 20, 25 minutes, at least, that we could carve out, and we just couldn't do that and do all the other things. I refuse to give you an e-board or convention where it's just 20 elected officials who stand up one after another, giving you a speech. Who gives a shit? Honestly, who cares?
Yes.
I want people to get up there and talk to you. You're going to see at this next e-board, there's going to be some interactive programming on the stage where we're actually discussing things. We're having an interactive discussion, kind of like we did with the lieutenant governor's race. The lieutenant governor's candidates were sure I was trying to set something up when instead of having them give speeches, we had them answer a set of questions. Now, by the way, to make it fair, a week before, or 5 days before, they all got the questions in advance. So every candidate knew what the questions were. They knew what the parameters were. But we wanted to try something different. And if I tell you the number of times people say, we can't do it that way, we've always done it this way, please don't tell me that. That doesn't mean it's the best way. And by the way, if I try something and it doesn't work, back to square one. Right? People spend a lot of money to be activists, to be volunteers. When I became the president of Stonewall in 1994, I had no idea how costly it would be to begin to move into the rung of leadership. I started having to travel all across the state, go to all these meetings, go to Washington for meetings, and for the most part, I wasn't subsidized. And even for folks who do nothing but come and volunteer 2 nights a week at the campaign office, you got to drive there, you got to pay a babysitter, you got to buy pizza, whatever it is. So, as we build our party going forward, as we look to the potential victories that we can bring here, it's for all of us, and all of us are important to it. So there are always going to be people in this state that don't like me and think I should never have been elected chair and think I wasn't elected chair. Too bad. That election's over, it's done, and it is what it is.
Nobody here feels that way.
Well, sure, whatever, doesn't matter. The point is, there are people that way. And there are people who campaigned very hard against me, who've come to me and literally said, I swear to you, word for word, I didn't vote for you, I didn't support you, I didn't think you should be chair. I'm so pleased with what you're doing and how differently you're doing things.
Good. Yeah.
I cannot believe that the day I became chair, there wasn't one organizer on the payroll of the California Democratic Party. Not one for the rural area, not one for the emerging communities like the Latino community, API community, millennial community. And we're in the process right now of trying to raise the money to fund those things. How do we take a state this big? And even if we say, okay, county committees and Democratic clubs, it's your responsibility to be our fingers into the world, great, perfect. But how do we make that work if we don't have somebody whose sole job it is to go out into the rural areas and talk to those folks, or to work with creating programming for young people? Right? I mean, this is just our reality. And, you know, there are some people in this room who've been around quite a while and have been coming up with new ideas for longer than I can think of. And I have a list of ideas that woman has given me over the last 15 years, and they're in my book. Right on down to the fact that I increased the size of the names again on the name tags. But it's simple, common sense things to try to make this work better. Now, the last thing I want to say, and I probably talked way too long, and I'll be glad to take questions. I don't know what your time frame is. I don't know what my time frame is. Our greater responsibility. Our greater responsibility to those beyond our borders or beyond our areas. Obviously, you all already know that you've got to help in adjacent districts where there are fights that can be won. But places like Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, those are within, kick drops of where we are, and that's going to ultimately define how well we are able to do. Somebody got offended that we set the theme of our convention as California, the Big Little Beacon of Hope, and said, how dare you make it seem like California is so much better than the rest of the country. I will tell you that I was at the meeting of the Association of Democratic State Committees a week and a half after our convention. And they said, they gave me applause when I came in the room. And they said, all the work and ideas that you're sharing with us, that your team is sharing with us, is helping us build. Because what people who make comments like that don't realize is, we've got more staff at the LA County Democratic Party than half the state Democratic parties in America. So we have this grander burden, and part of our grander burden is the fact that we've really been able to experiment to prove that progressive and liberal policies can be effective and work. We've had that opportunity here. And when you have Ted Lieu and Maxine Waters and Jerry Brown standing up to the White House, even Adam Schiff for sure, they look, because their members are afraid, oh my God, well, I come from a Trump district, or I come from a district that, I only won by 2 points. So they look at our leaders who do that, who go on television, and not just CNN and not just MSNBC, but Fox too, and stand up. So why did I debate Jim Brulte in the, and by the way, I just want to diverge, I don't think I said this. I walk into this Nixon library, and I'm in this very palatial place that is giving honor to this great man, this great president. And, you'd think it was almost like Ronald Reagan. It was almost that great. And I'm thinking to myself, I grew up reviling this guy. I grew up wanting this guy to be removed from office, one way or another.
He's a crook.
He did 2 good things. He opened up China and he ended the draft about 18 months before I would have gotten drafted. Okay, those are 2 good things he did while he was in office. Maybe wage control.
That's what we have.
the point is, I walked in there, and I'm never shy about being in the belly of the beast. But it's a very odd feeling to go in there and see these people who think, well, you know, the solution is if we throw all the illegal aliens out, if we throw everybody off of welfare and cut their food stamps, if we kill Obamacare and let the markets regulate it, if we starve the beast, as they say, everything will be beautiful. And to stand up and not be cowed by this, it's first of all, it's really uncomfortable. But you can't let them see that it is. It is amazing that right here in California, that's just an hour and 10 minutes, or an hour and 40 minutes from here. That's right here in California, and that's how they think. And they celebrate Richard Nixon in that place as if he was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So, you guys do good work. You engage. You actually put your, lack of a better phrase, your money where your mouth is. You do the grassroots work. That helps. Any race that's within 3-4%, that makes all the difference in the world. Just keep it up. Don't let anybody cow you. Don't let anybody tell you that. Don't let anybody tell you that, you know, you don't have the right to express an idea that's different than the status quo. Dorothy and I have argued about a zillion things over the years, but she'll tell you the one thing: I never ever tried to curtail her expressing her thought or her opinion. And one thing I think we have to learn from each other is to be a little bit tolerant. Because you know what, sometimes somebody else's perspective is a little different than ours, and it might be better. Might not be. You let people talk. And if we truly are the open and free people that we claim we are, that we claim hope to be, that's an essential thing that we learn, to have a little bit of patience with each other. One of the worst things that has happened to us is we become so polarized that people automatically assume that, oh, you're a Republican, I can't talk to you. Oh, you're a Democrat, I can't talk to you. Oh, you're gay, I can't talk to you. Oh, you're an illegal alien, you were undocumented, and now you have DACA? I definitely can't talk to you. Immigration may be coming. We have to learn a little bit of patience for each other, a little tolerance for each other. It is not a good trait that we've all developed. What happens is, in our version of the anger, the same anger that those frustrated white people in Middle America and the Central Valley and the Inland Empire feel, we've also developed a similar kind of a frustration, and so that causes us to cut people off. I'll end by saying that some of the most enjoyable may not be exactly the right word, experiences that I have is sitting down and having dinner with a group of conservatives. First of all, I love the debate. That just kind of goes to my Bronx personality. But I get a sense of hearing what they're saying, and I start to get some intuition into what they think and how they got there, and the level of anger it takes to think that some human being is less than you are. My mama didn't raise me that way. My mother always told a story about when she first got hired to work in the operating room at Queens General Hospital. They took her around and they introduced her to, this is Dr. So-and-so, this is Nurse So-and-so, this is Technician So-and-so, this is Emma, the housekeeper. Everybody else was Mrs. this, Doctor, Doctor that, and this is Emma. And my mother said, Emma, what's your last name? Well, Mrs. Smith, it's very nice to meet you. And I think that's a lesson we should never forget. And so I'll end there. I'm happy to answer questions or whatever you want me to.